Hello everyone! In this training session, we will cover the third part of payroll formula configuration, specifically tax deduction. For tax deduction, we will use the table values screen to fetch the necessary values and calculate the tax amount. We will follow the same presentation as we did in the basic salary and the house rent allowance training session. The agenda is similar, focusing on how to configure the formula and its results. The aim is to help the participants understand the formula configuration so they can achieve calculations according to company policies. The prerequisites are also the same. You must have completed ONF 100 and PMT 2004 trainings. It's also assumed that you have checked the configuration videos covering global values, table structure, table values, component definition, input values, database functions, and database items. A knowledge of C# for formula writing and a basic understanding of the Onfinity framework are also necessary. In this use case, we will address the third scenario in this training session, which involves writing a formula for tax deduction calculation. This component will take into account the total earnings up to the processing month. It will then identify the relevant slab ranges for the total earnings and retrieve the corresponding percentage from the table value screen to calculate the tax. During this training, you will learn how to use table structure and table values within the payroll formula configuration. The formula master configuration process remains the same, and the formula result configuration is also consistent. Now, let's move into the system and write the tax deduction formula. Now, I will log into the system using the admin role. After logging in, I will navigate to the menu, then to the Human Resources Management General Setup folder, and open the Formula Master screen. To write the tax deduction formula, I will begin by copying the formula structure. Then I'll open Visual Studio and paste the structure there. Since I am creating a formula for tax deduction, I will rename it to Tax Deduction version 1. Here, I need to define the variables that will be used in the formula for calculation. I will need total earnings. This variable will store the total earnings, which will be used to determine the applicable deduction percentage. Next, we need to fetch the percentage from the table values. So, I will declare deduction percentage here. This will hold the tax deduction percentage based on the income slab. Finally, I need the calculated value, which will be the tax amount. This variable will hold the final tax amount. Now that I have declared these variables, I will define the calculation logic. The first step is to retrieve the total earnings of the processing employee. To get the total earnings, we will use the earning component balance, as demonstrated in the house rent allowance video. As you know, we have an earning component balance where both the basic salary and house rent allowance components contribute. Now, let's verify this in the system. I will navigate to General Setup, then Balance Definition, and select the earning component balance. I will then go to Link Components. Here, you can confirm that basic salary and house rent allowance are contributing to this particular balance. Next, I will go to the database items, search for earning component, copy the balance name, and write the following in the formula: total earning equals database item dot get database item, followed by the name of the database item for the copied balance. This will provide the total earnings for the processing employee. Next, I will set a condition. If the total earnings are greater than 0, then I will calculate the tax. To calculate the tax, I need to retrieve the percentage of tax to be deducted from the salary based on the earnings and the defined table slabs. I will obtain the percentage from the table values by matching the total earnings to the appropriate slabs defined in the table values. Let's examine the table values. I will navigate to General Setup and then to Table Structure. Here, I have defined a table called Tax Regime, and the match type is set to Range. This signifies that I will select a specific range and define the values within that range. These ranges can then be used in my formulas. When I go to the Column tab, I find one column labeled Tax Regime Slab. When I go to the Rows tab, there are 4 rows. I have defined the following ranges: 1 rupee to 400,000 rupees, 400,001 rupees to 800,000 rupees, 800,001 rupees to 1,200,000 rupees, and 1,200,001 rupees to 2 million rupees. These are the ranges defined in the table rows. Now, I will navigate to the table values where I assign the values to these ranges. Here, in the tax regime table, under the tax regime slab column, we can see that if the salary range is between 1 rupee and 400,000 rupees, the percentage value is 5%. If the range is between 400,001 rupees and 800,000 rupees, the percentage value is 10%. If the salary range falls between 800,000 and 1,200,000 rupees, the percentage value is 15%. And finally, if the range is 1,200,001 rupees to 2 million rupees, the percentage value is 20%. Let's go back to the formula and retrieve these values. To do this, I will copy the search key of this user table. I will then write deduction percentage equals util dot get value of decimal. This is because we need to convert the returned object into a decimal, since the function we are using will provide an object. Following this, I'll write database item.get table value. It will then prompt for the table name, which is tax regime. Next, it requests the column name. I will navigate to the column, retrieve the search key for the column, and paste it into the formula. Finally, it asks for the value to match for identifying the appropriate range to get the percentage. I need to determine which range my total earnings fall into, and then retrieve the corresponding percentage from that specific table. With the deduction percentage obtained, I can calculate the deduction amount based on the total earning amount. I will write, if deduction percentage is greater than 0, then I will calculate the tax amount. This will be equal to deduction percentage multiplied by total earnings, divided by 100. I will then round this amount by writing math.round tax amount. This step yields the tax amount. Now that we have calculated the tax amount, I will return 2 values. The first value will be tax amount dot to string, and the second will be deduction percentage dot to string, separated by a comma. In previous formulas, I returned only 1 value. However, in this case, I will return 2 values, and you can return any number of values needed in the components. Now, let's copy this formula and navigate to the Formula Master. Click on New Record, select the organization as star, paste the formula text, copy the class name, and assign the same name. Save the record. Let's compile it. The system indicates that the compilation was successful. Now let's define the formula results for this formula in the Formula Results screen. For the formula results, I will create a new record, choose the organization as star, and select the component type as tax deduction, because my triggering component will be tax deduction, and the formula will be tax deduction version 1. I will save this and go to the second tab. Here, I'll select the pay value, and the type will be direct. The reason for this is that the triggering component and the target component are the same. So, I will select direct, then select tax deduction, then pay value, and save. Now, I am also returning the deduction percentage. For this, I have created a separate component. I will create a new record. In the second sequence, I will select pay value, and the type will be indirect. This is because the triggering component and the target component are different. Therefore, the result will be passed indirectly. I will then choose my component, tax deduction percentage, and assign the percentage input value to this component. I will select percentage here, and save. Now, let's navigate to the employee work information to check if this component is tagged to the employee. To do this, I will go to Workforce Management. Within this folder, I will open the Employee Work Information Payroll screen. After accessing the screen, I will select the employee Abhishek Sharma and navigate to the Employee Work Information tab. Under this tab, I will go to the Payroll component details. There, we can confirm that the tax deduction component is already tagged to this employee. Now let's process the payroll for Abhishek Sharma and verify whether the tax deduction is applied. For that, we will go to the salary.io folder. In that folder, I will open the Payroll Run screen. On the screen, the record is already created. I will process the Quick Pay, select the employee Abhishek Sharma, and click OK. The system confirms that the payroll was executed successfully and the status is completed. Now I will go to the Run Assignments, followed by the Run Results. Here, you can observe that my basic salary is 45,000 rupees, and my house rent allowance is 18,000 rupees. Consequently, my earning component balance totals 63,000 rupees. The tax deduction percentage is 5%, which corresponds to the value defined in the table values. As my total earning is 63,000 rupees, let's check the rows to confirm this. Since the total earning is 63,000 rupees, my range falls between 1 rupee and 400,000 rupees, which has a value of 5%. That is why I am seeing 5% in the payroll. 5% of 63,000 rupees is 3,150 rupees, which is the deduction amount. This is an informational section. It does not affect the total gross. The gross pay is 63,000 rupees. The tax deduction is 3,150 rupees, and the net pay is 59,850 rupees. You have now seen how to return multiple values, utilize table values and table structures, and implement formulas in your payroll. That concludes this training session. Thank you for attending.